Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Visit Tuscaloosa.
It's Tuesday night inside the Digital Media Center, WVUA 23 studio in Bryant-Denny Stadium, Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium. You know what that means. That means Tider Insider TV, presented by Visit Tuscaloosa. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm WVUA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris, and we have got a jam-packed show tonight. A lot of different things to cover. We're in that time period, Rodney, where the winter sports are overlapping the spring sports, so there's so many sports going on. This past weekend was crazy. But yes, we're going to work in some football too, but we're going to start with men's basketball. They're on a little bit of a roll right now, stacking some wins. Remember, we talked about this last week. They've got 4 in a row now, coming off a solid performance against South Carolina this past Saturday night as Crimson Tide took down the Gamecocks. 89-75 was the final score in this game. And I'll tell you this, Rod, it wasn't a blowout. I give South Carolina, Lamont Paris and company a lot of credit for battling, playing hard, but you never felt like Alabama was in trouble here. Even though South Carolina battled, Alabama kind of kept a double-digit lead for most part of the game. They wind up winning it 89-74, or 75 was the score in that ball game. They out-rebounded the Gamecocks by 14. Alabama's rebounding has really improved over the last several games. Turnovers maybe a little bit too high still. They had 12 turnovers in the game. Aiden Holloway finished with 20. LeBaron Philon and Latrell Wrightsville both had 19, so those 3 players combined for 58 points in the game. As I mentioned, 4 straight wins now. Alabama gets back into the top 25, Rodney, in the AP poll at number 25, and now it's going to ratchet it up a little bit with this game tomorrow night against Arkansas. First, though, let's just talk about Bama and that game at Florida. That was kind of a watershed moment for the Tide. They got absolutely annihilated in that game in Gainesville. I mean, blown out, embarrassed. Nate Oats said as much. But all you can do is respond, and they've done that. Big road win at Auburn, big home win against Texas A&M, another road win at Ole Miss, and now this win against South Carolina. And theoretically now, I mean, they could finish this season on a real hot streak.
They could, and we said it. Hey, we said it right after that Florida game. Said, listen, you know, we've seen Nate Oats' teams get blown out by Florida in the past, and they've responded really well. A lot of times when you see the adversity kind of starting to build, his teams kind of rise to the occasion, and that's what they've done, Gary. Four straight wins, as you mentioned. They've done that three times this year, 1-4. Now can they make it 5? I mean, can they finally take that step? But you mentioned the guards. I mean, they really came up big in the scoring, like you said. I think 58 of the points that they had, so it's pretty amazing.
And Holloway and Philon over this streak, averaging 37 combined. They're a dynamic backcourt. Alabama's at 95 points per game over the 4-game win streak. They're still at over 91 points for the season, 3rd in the country. Of course, Arkansas scores a lot of points, too. One thing I'll say about Alabama, Rodney, they can score. We know that. Even in games where they may not be hitting the threes, they still find a way usually to get their point total up. I think the key is rebounding and defense. And you know, the way they play, it's hard to think you're going to hold teams in the 60s, but they held South Carolina under 80. Yeah. And if they can keep people from getting into the 90s, it's going to be hard to beat Alabama.
Yeah, and Nate Oats seemed to believe that, hey, this team can still get better defensively. I mean, that there's still, obviously we know there's room for improvement, but he felt like that they can get there. I mean, the indication was after the game, and you're right, we've talked about defense and rebounding the whole season, and you mentioned it's been really positive. I think they out-rebounded by South Carolina by, 14, I think? 12, 14. So really hit the boards, and you know what? The loss of Bediako, I know people are kind of getting over that, but somebody's got to pick up the slack.
Well, it's going to get tougher, as we said, and let's get to coach talk right now, because Alabama, as Rodney mentioned, has won 4 straight games for the 3rd time this season, leading up to their top 25 matchup against Arkansas on Wednesday night. Now, Holloway and Philon, as I said, scoring 37 points per game as a duo over the last 4 contests. Alabama scoring almost 95 points per game in that 4-game win streak. But the Crimson Tide has also got it done on the boards. They've out-rebounded 3 of those 4 teams that they've beaten, with Auburn being the exception now. The only issue that has presented itself, as we mentioned, in that win streak, turnovers, and also Alabama, of course, trying to get to a little bit better on defense. But they're going to face a stiff challenge tomorrow night. Arkansas is led by point guard Darius Acuff, one of the top freshmen in the nation. There will be a lot of star power with Alabama's LeBaron Philon matched up with Acuff. And Crimson Tide head coach Nate Oats says the challenge for Philon and the team is not on the offensive end, rather on defense.
He doesn't need to outscore Acuff. If that happens, that happens. He needs to lead his team to a win. That's taking care of the ball, making sure his team gets great shots, making sure the team plays great defense, which includes him playing great individual defense. That's what we need out of him.
All right, let's get to A-Cuff, because this guy, Rodney, is a special player. He's a freshman. He's dynamic. And this is a team that also has Trayvon Brazile at 6'10" that can run the floor. You know, they're averaging 88 points a game. You know, at Kentucky, toward the end, people complain that Cal didn't play fast enough. That's not the situation with this team. They get up and down the court just like Alabama does.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they score a lot of points. This should be a really exciting game. You know, Gary, and I tell you what, Alabama, we mentioned all the things that they've done, but I don't think we mentioned that Alabama has, 6 games now where they've hit 12 threes, a dozen threes, so they're shooting the three really well, which is going to be extremely important in this game with Arkansas.
In terms of rebounds per game, we've talked a lot about Alabama having rebounding issues, but you know they're 12th in the country in rebounds per game on average. Arkansas is 150th. That's a little bit shocking to me. So you would think that Alabama's going to have a chance to get on the boards tomorrow night, hopefully get some offensive rebounds, and of course shoot the threes well. Where Arkansas can kill you, Rod, is if you turn the ball over. You give them extra positions. They're good defensively, and that's the key, I think, tomorrow night for Alabama, is not taking care of the basketball and making Arkansas earn their points.
And they've done that a little bit better here recently, so that's been a real key. So certainly going to have to continue to do that in this game. And again, we mentioned the threes, and Alabama's been shooting those really, really well. So those are two of the keys that I think with this coming up against Arkansas.
Who do you like tomorrow night?
I'm going Bama.
I'm going Bama, too, at home. Yeah. I think they're going to get to 5 in a row. All right, let's get to some women's hoop. The SEC women's basketball season is a grind. It's better than the men's league this year. In fact, the SEC in women's basketball is far above the best league in the country. Now, Alabama lost a tough one this past Sunday, 79-71 to Oklahoma. It was a battle of ranked teams, and Oklahoma has a really solid team. Alabama battled in this one, got the lead, but in the fourth quarter, they got outscored by a significant margin, and that was the difference in the game. And they wind up losing this one, as I said, 79-71. But no time to feel sorry for yourself, because on Thursday night, you know who they got coming to town? South Carolina, number 3 team in the country. Don Staley and company. Should be a big crowd on Thursday night at Coleman Coliseum. And I tell you this, Alabama's already played them up there. Alabama's capable of playing with South Carolina at home on Thursday night. So get a crowd out there and support this team. Well, still to come on Tider Insider Television, a former junior college wide receiver committed to the Crimson Tide over the weekend, and Alabama football added to its coaching staff. Well, they're losing a few and adding a few as well, and we're going to have the breakdown on that for you. Also, we'll be getting your phone calls, emails, and tweets a little bit later on in the show. The phone number, as always, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the one, the only Tider Insider TV. We'll return right after this. Tider Insider Television, presented by Visit Tuscaloosa. Alongside Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Well, spring football will be starting up very, very soon, and Alabama, of course, tweaking the roster, also tweaking the coaching staff, both on the field and off the field. The latest hire, we already told you about it, but now it's official. Richard Owens is joining Kalen DeBoer's staff as the tight ends coach after 3 years as the O-line coach at Louisville, where they were really, really good at running the football. Just saying, tight ends, offensive line kind of ties in together. He has had 16 years of experience. He's also been a coordinator. Rodney, I think this is Brian Ellis, of course, moves over from tight ends to quarterbacks. So you bring in Richard Owens here, a guy who is going to coach your tight ends but has offensive line experience as well.
Tons of offensive line experience, Gary. And, here's the thing, too. When you look at this staff right now offensively, you look at Ryan Grubb, his roots are on the offensive line. You look at Adrian Clem, longtime offensive line coach, had a lot of success. Richard Owens, kind of the same way. You talked about being able to run the football. Both those guys, Clem, Owens, have had a lot of success on the teams that they've coached, coordinated, run games. They've had a ton of success. So I think this was a really good hire to kind of go with Adrian Clem.
You got all these offensive line coaches in here. I know what the folks on TiderInsider.com are saying. Run the darn ball.
Well, they're not quite saying that, but something similar.
Yeah, but they're saying run the football. All right, all kinds of changes in terms of some support staff. Alabama's Director of Recruiting Operations, Kerry Kerrigan Johnson left the program after 7 years. By all accounts, Rodney, people I've talked to, she did an unbelievable job and is going to be missed. And in her replacement mode is going to be Alex Mathis and Stephen Wise coming in. Mathis was the executive director of recruiting at Georgia Tech prior to joining the Tide. He was also with the Falcons for a season, or only in Atlanta for a season, but spent 3 years in the USF, where he was also recruiting there. And Stephen Wise was a scout for the Arizona Cardinals for 5 seasons. After his first 3 seasons, he was promoted to the team's representative for the National Football Scouting League Combine. So they've got a lot of experience with the NFL. And also in terms of high school recruiting.
Well, I tell you, when you talk about Alex Mathis, let's start with him at Georgia Tech. When he was there, did a fantastic job. He was there 1 year. But Gary, at UCF, he had 3 straight top 40 recruiting classes. Then he gets to Georgia Tech, and you talk about identifying talent. He did a really good job with that. Of course, they signed a 5-star offensive tackle, Josh Petty, there, but also he had Bear Fretwell, who signed with Alabama, kid that really was not heavily recruited. Georgia Tech identified him, and then it kind of alerted other programs. And, Gary, we've talked about Bear Fretwell. He's a guy that's 6'7", 270, ran a 4.7, 740. So being able to identify talent is really key. And I know that Alex Mathis, Stephen Wise, they've done a fantastic job in their positions of doing that.
Also, Alabama is bringing in USC analyst Brad Okoye to be a pass game specialist. He is a former USC wide receiver and quarterback. He's been there at USC with Lincoln Riley, so obviously got a lot of experience throwing the football. This is a guy in, Okoye that has a lot of experience and, again, should help Alabama on offense.
And talking to some people close to USC, Gary, familiar with him, say he's extremely bright. You talked about the experience that he's had with Lincoln Riley. He's coached wide receivers. He knows offense, obviously. But also, look, I'm hearing a lot of NFL teams have had their eyes on him. They're really impressed with what he's done. He had some opportunities with some other programs, Miami, Texas A&M. So he's a guy that I think is a really great addition as well.
And let me get Brad's name right, because I had it before the show. It's Aoki.
Aoki,
not
yep.
Okoye. It's Aoki. But Brad Aoki coming in from USC. All right, we've got Alabama football adding another player because, again, that roster size has been increased. Junior college wide receiver Tyler Henderson coming in, Rodney. What can you tell us about him?
I mean, when you look at Tyler Henderson, he's a guy that was signed with Kennesaw State, was originally headed to Kennesaw State out of JUCO. He was one of the top JUCO receivers in the country, had close to 70 receptions this past year, close to 1,300 yards, 13 touchdowns. I mean, he did it all. 6'1", 180, great speed, guy that they say runs a sub 4.4, Gary. When you watch him on tape, you almost say, how is this guy not more highly recruited? So, again, you talk about identifying talent, maybe that some people overlook, and Alabama's doing a really good job, it appears.
All right, still to come on Tider Insider Television. Alabama baseball had a season-opening series over the weekend, and it didn't start out well, but it sure finished up nicely. Plus, the Tide's in action tonight. We'll update you on baseball. And coming up next, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. There's the number on your screen, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Or you can email us, TITV@WVUA23.com. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider TV. Alabama baseball opened the season on Friday and Saturday. They were scheduled for 3 games on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but because of weather, they played a doubleheader on Saturday. It didn't start out well, as they dropped the opener 8-4, and it wasn't that close. It took a LeBron home run in the ninth to make it a little bit closer. But, boy, they came back on Saturday with a vengeance, winning 8-1 and 11-1 to clinch the series victory. Freshman pitcher Miles Upchurch was a star. He had 4 scoreless innings. Zane Adams also pitched well. Tyler Fay struggled in the opener, but Alabama gets 2 out of 3. LeBron homered twice. Of course, he is a Player of the Year candidate in college baseball. And right now, Alabama trying to pull one out over at Samford. The Tide was down 2-0 in the 8th. They scored 3 in the 8th and trying to win it now in the 9th, leading 3-2 over the Samford Bulldogs. So, Rodney, baseball off and running, and this is a team that Coach Vaughn feels like is the most talented that he's had, maybe not just at Alabama and all his time at Maryland as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I know a lot of fans, serious baseball fans, really excited about this team.
All right, let's get to the phone calls, and Corey is going to lead us off. Corey over in Trussville. Hey, Corey, how are you?
Hey, Gary. Hey, how y'all doing this afternoon?
Doing well.
Well, I'm trying to figure out what Alabama softball's going to do at third base. You got two options in Abby Dushner and Garrett Griggs, but that's really the only opening spot left, and I just wanted to get y'all's thoughts on what do you think Murphy might do there?
Well, I think you'll probably fill it out. I think Dusher's been in the program a long time. She's a versatile player, got a pretty good bat. So I trust that Patrick Murphy's going to figure it out. I like this team. Corey, you call my radio show pretty much every day and talk softball. They're talented. They're deep. They've got 13, 14 green light girls that have got the freedom to steal anytime they want. They've got some pop. We talked about the 18 home runs they hit in the opening tournament over in Atlanta at the Buzz Classic. They came back and went 4-0 this past weekend in the Easton Bama Bash. So they're 9-0 on the season. Now they go to a big tournament at Florida State, and Florida State's really good, Rodney. So the competition is going to be a little bit tougher.
And the thing I like to hear, Gary, those home runs, because I think that's the thing they've needed, some power.
Power. It's a power game now. All right, let's get to our email question of the day, and it's being presented, as always, by KDM Service Corporation. When it comes to heating and air conditioning, KDM Service Corporation serves your family like our family. And here is from pal Jim out in Sparks, Nevada. Notice that Alabama is picked to finish 9th in the SEC. Do you think that's too low? He's talking about softball too. I don't, Jim, because I think Alabama's going to finish higher than 9th. I do. But when you look at the teams that are up there ahead of them, Rodney, I can't really argue. I think that's about right. Now, I think they got a chance to finish higher than that, but based on just the preseason rankings, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, but it's crazy.
Yeah,
I mean,
the league is.
I mean, you just, amazing how competitive it is, and you would have never dreamed here, a few years ago, that Alabama would be picked 9th in the preseason.
All right, we've got to get to some more phone calls on our Decades Pub and Grub hotline at 205-348-9882. They're wide open. We want you to get involved with us. And also, still to come, Alabama is playing well in softball, as we just mentioned, and it's going to get a little bit tougher for the Tide, but we'll have more on softball. And as I said, we'll get to more of your phone calls, emails, and tweets. That phone number on the Decades Pub and Grub hotline, 205-348-9882. Go ahead and give us a call. We want to hear from you, Tider Insider Nation, when we come back. We talked a little softball earlier when Corey called in, but as we said, Bama goes 4-0 in the Bama Bash. They were scheduled to play a 5th game on Sunday, but the weather got them just like in baseball. Still, 3 of those wins were run rule wins, meaning they had an 8-run or more lead after 5 innings. They had a bunch of run rule wins at the Buzz Classic, so this team is really right now tearing it up. But as we said, they are going over to Tallahassee now for a big tournament, the Dugout Dub Classic, hosted by Florida State. Bama will play 5 games over 3 days, including 2 showdowns with the 6th-ranked Seminoles, so it's going to get tougher. All right, let's jump back out on the Decades Pub and Grub hotline. Remember, Decades Pub and Grub downtown at Timerson Square. Pub food made in a scratch kitchen where they make everything from scratch. It's better food than what you're accustomed to downtown at Timerson Square. All right, let's get to Alyssa here in Tuscaloosa. Hey, Alyssa.
Hey, how are y'all?
Doing well.
Okay, I have a question. How do you guys feel that the new coaching staff will do? We've added a lot of new people, so I have to get y'all's take.
All right, I tried to catch that. Give it to me one more time, Alyssa, if you can. All right, new coaching staff, Rodney. Well, they've got a lot of coaches coming back as well. But the new coaches that they're bringing in, I have to assume, Melissa, that Kalen DeBoer's put a lot of thought into this, and he feels like that they're going to make their staff better and ultimately their football team better.
Yeah, listen, I agree with you, Gary. I think when you talk about the guys, we've already talked about Adrian Clem. I mean, obviously Richard Owens coming in. They've moved Ellis, as you said, to the quarterbacks. And look, I think when you look at Owens specifically at the tight end, because I think she was asking partly about that, look at the personnel that they have. I really think that a name you're going to want to remember at tight end is the Oklahoma State transfer, Josh Ford. He's got 6'6", 260. He's going to bring that inline presence that you need, Gary, with that blocking tight end. Of course, you got some really good ones coming back. You got Caleb Edwards, who's a fantastic freshman. Marshall Pritchett's a young player that I think is going to be really good. You got Max Sutter coming in as a true freshman. And you've got Danny Lewis, who's been around a while. So he's going to have a good group to work with.
All right. Thanks for the phone call. Let's get to an email from Tammy in Moundville. Will Charles Bediako go back to the G League? My understanding is that he's going to stay here and stay in classes at Alabama, practice with the team, help them prepare for the upcoming games. that's what he's doing right now. So my expectation is that if he goes back to the G League, it won't be until the end of the season. That's all that I know at this point, Ronnie. It's based on what Nate Oats has said.
Exactly.
He's going to stay here and he's going to help the team. So that's good to know. All right, let's get to one more email question here real quickly while we have time. All right, who will be Alabama's starting center this season? Jack and Easton.
That's a great question. I'm going to say, Gary, if I had to predict right now, I would go with Racing Delgatti, the transfer from Cal Poly. He had a lot of experience out there. He's taken a lot of steps. Now, listen, Caden Strayhorn, the transfer from Michigan, he's got the ability to play guard and center, and Delgatti can play both as well. So I think they're in good shape there.
All right, thanks for the phone calls and emails. And when we come back, Alabama Gymnastics, boy, they're scoring at a really high clip this season. We're going to have that for you as it's a beautiful, kind of overcast night, but feeling pretty good here in Tuscaloosa. We'll be right back after this. Alabama Gymnastics was at its best this past Friday night. Their best score of the season, 197.95, as they defeated Arkansas, who scored a 196.9, but is the sixth best score in program history and the highest score by a team since 2024. Right there knocking on the door of that magical 198. Gabby Gladio captured the individual titles and won the all-around. Alabama is rolling. All right, thank you for tuning in to this edition of Tider Insider TV. A reminder, if you missed any of tonight's show, you can catch a replay tonight at 10:30 or find it anytime at WVOA23.com. Speaking of gymnastics, we're going to leave you tonight with more from that meet. It was the Power of Pink meet. For over 20 years, Alabama has brought awareness to breast cancer survivors and the DCH Cancer Center, and it was another magical night on Friday night at Coleman Coliseum. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching, everybody. And we'll see you again next week on Tider Insider TV.